Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I want to use some shadow effects to create a hover pop-up effect. So I was looking at this website for Magnolia Docs, or Magnolia, and saw this really pleasing card effect they have on here. When you hover over the card, it obviously looks like it's popping up, and they're just doing that with a shadow effect. And I thought that was pretty nice. And when I just came back here, I see they get this pretty cool little underline effect too. Notice how the underline grows from the inside out. We'll tackle that in another video. But I do like this little hover up effect, so I want to reproduce that pretty easily, just so we can see how that works. Notice it's just a block. It's not the actual anchor, and then they have basically little navigation menus in each of those. So let's get to work. I've already started up a page, and there's nothing that fancy on it. Let me zoom in a fair amount. And I'm gonna basically, I've just got a div, which is gonna be my parent for my sample figures. I'm just using figure tags. I'm only using 3 of them, whereas they had 4, but if we can get it to work for 3, we can certainly get it to work for 4. All right, and I've just got some dummy text in there. So let's go ahead and get to work. Oh, how does my page look at the moment? So there it is, just blank white background. I wanted a white background because they had a white background, and it makes that shadow effect look a little bit more impressive. So let's take care of it. So I'm going to move up into my styling area, right in there. And let's see, I've got an article, and I'm going to do a div. So the div, which is in my article, remember the div is going to be my parent for my figures. And I'm going to use Flexbox here. That's a pretty easy way to get 3 elements side by side. So let's see, we will go ahead and do a display flex. And I'm going to throw a flex flow in there of row wrap, even though it doesn't really come into play in our particular demonstration. All right, now article, div, figure. I'm using figure tags. I haven't used figure tags in a while. And let's see, these are going to be flex. I'll do 1, 0, 200 pixels. That's the grow, the shrink, the basis. And let's give them a width of 200 pixels and a height of 300 pixels. And how about a margin of 12 pixels? Now we're not going to be able to see them really well because they've got the white background on another white background. So let's go ahead and put in the shadow effect. We know the shadow is going to be pretty important, and I can tell just by looking at it without hovering, there's a wee bit more bottom shadow than there is on the left and the right. So we know that the shadow is going to be just downward. So I'm going to do a box shadow and do 0 pixels, which is the XY position of the shadow, the left and right. And then I'm going to do something like, I don't know, let's see, 3 pixels. Let's try that, 3 pixels. And I'm going to make it pretty dark. I'll just do black on there. Oh, we need a blurriness to it. It's not too blurry. When the item is close to the surface, the shadow is small and the shadow is dense. So we don't want this shadow to be very blurry. And what if I just did 3 pixels? And then I'll make it dark. Really dark, black. Okay, so that should be enough now that we can see how this is looking. Yeah, and sure enough, yeah, it's and we can visualize it a little bit. I think I probably could have gone a little bit more. Their shadow is a little bit softer, so I think I can enhance the blur of that. So that's that 3rd value right there. And what if we just did something like 8? How does that look? That looks pretty good to me. And with that blur, we can just see a hint of shadow along the along the left and the right and up above. So we really have that box nicely defined. I'm pretty happy with that. So let's take care of the hover effect. Article div figure :hover. So that's a pseudo class. And let's see, what do we want to change? Well, we definitely want to change that box shadow. Let's see, I think I still want 0 left and right shadow movement, but I'm going to do more Y shadow movement. How about something like 8 pixels? And then we want it to be super blurry. I'm going to go like, I don't know, 28 pixels, 25, 28, 30, trial and error. And so now, yeah, that shadow gets really big, and we'll just make that a little bit blurrier. Now for this effect to really look good, I think what we should do is go ahead and put in our transition. I'm going to transition all. Let's see, we'll do 300 milliseconds, ease in, out. And yeah, so that's kind of the effect right there. It looks pretty good to me. I'm going to make one additional item on here. You know, when an item comes closer to you, it's further away from the surface, that item should appear a little bit bigger. I'm going to also, on hover, I'm going to make the width of these 202 pixels, and the height will be 303 pixels. Just a little bit bigger than their original widths and heights. Yeah, I think that'll be pretty neat. Probably won't even be noticeable so much, but I think it helps just emphasize the effect that as I hover over this card, it's hovering up off of the surface of the page and getting closer to me. Yeah, if we had I probably wouldn't bother changing font sizes on something like that. That could be a little bit distracting. However, I think that's a pretty good effect right there compared to what they have over at Magnolia. Their shadow looks like a little bit more prominent, and I can't tell. No, I think it's just shadow effect. So if we exaggerated our shadow a little bit more on hover, what if I did 10 pixels down the Y and 40 pixels of blur? Cool. All right, I think we're going to call this one good, and there we go. So nothing fancy about the HTML. I'm just using block elements that are contained within a parent block element. But the key is, of course, all with the shadow. A little bit of box shadow, a little bit of blur, and a very dark, dense color. And then on hover, I didn't change my shadow color there. That would have helped. Maybe soften it up a little into a darker gray so that shadow is less dense, less dark. Okay, a little bit lighter. Cool, and there we go. So just on hover, changing the shadow and also changing a little width and height. Excellent. Take care.